Hello. Can you guys see and hear me? Am I coming in okay? If you can hear me, we are ready to get started today. We might give everyone a couple of minutes so that anyone who wants to watch live can. If you're having any audio issues, if you can't seem to hear me, yes, we can hear you. Awesome. Okay, so I'll give everyone until maybe like 7:35 so that if anyone else is joining us live, they have a little bit longer to log on. We are, of course, making stamps today. I'm very excited. This is a very fun craft. While we're waiting for a few more people to log on, if you don't already have a design in mind for your stamps, now would be a great time to start brainstorming, sketching things out. I definitely think for this stamp project, kind of bigger geometric shapes are going to be a little bit easier to carve with our particular tool, which I will get into later. But yeah, if you haven't already, if you want to start thinking about what you might like to carve, and then we'll plan on properly getting started at around 7:35. I hope everyone is having a good first week of January. After a busy end of December. Are you guys New Year's resolution people? I personally am very much a New Year's resolution person. I always get very excited to set them and maybe not meet them, but at least be a little more aware of them. I wonder if any of you have New Year's resolutions about crafts or crafting or being more creative in the new year. I think that would be a great one. A very positive resolution, as opposed to cutting anything out or anything like that. Welcome to anyone who's just joined. We were just waiting until around 7:35 to get started on our stamp making craft. And I had suggested, if you haven't already, using this time before we get started to start brainstorming what kind of design you might want to do on your stamp. And of course, feel free to get comfy. Obviously, you know, it's an hour-long live stream. You can spend as long on this craft as you would like. Always recommend a good crafting beverage. I did not have the foresight today to prepare a crafting beverage, so no cozy apple cider like last time. Just one more minute. Although I think we might be ready. Let's get started. So, in your craft kit this month, you received 3 things. Well, 4 things if you include your join our live stream QR code. So hopefully if you are here, you have either found a way to join our live stream tonight on January 5th, or you are watching the recording. Hello, recording watchers. in your craft kit, you received 2 different stamp pads. So there's a round one and a square one. I figured it's nice to have 2 just so you can, one, have an extra one if you make a mistake, which, as we know, is a key part of crafting. And also just a way to explore kind of a design in a different shape, have multiple stamps that you can use to have fun with. You may be wondering why you have a strange pencil with no eraser in it. So generally with stamp carving, we use specialized tools that are very sharp. And I suppose I understand why. But the library could not give out sharp carving tools to each of you. So as an alternative, we have MacGyvered this stamp carving tool out of a pencil that has the eraser taken out, and then we've squeezed the end into kind of a teardrop shape with kind of a sharp end for more detailed areas and a wider end to kind of clear more of the stamp. If you're wondering what these are made out of, these are basically the same as those pink erasers that you use for school. They're maybe just a little bit harder. Some notes about the stamp tool and using it and your designs. This is not going to be as precise as a real stamp carving tool because it's a little more dull, obviously, because we don't want you to hurt yourself. So you will need to both exert more force as you're carving, and also it's a little harder to get precise details. So when you're thinking about the kind of design you want to do, you want to try and think about doing a design that's a little more geometric, that's kind of bigger, more simple shapes, so you don't have to worry about too many fine details getting lost in the carving process. However, I encourage you to reach for the stars. If you want to get ambitious and try and do something super detailed, I encourage it and support you fully. Other supplies you might need, I just have a pencil to sketch out my designs directly on the stamps. The good thing about this being erasers is you can draw on them with pencil and erase out parts that you don't like so that you can have a design that you're really happy with. I also have optional, I guess you just really need to focus on carving the stamp today. But if you'd like to use your stamps, I just have some like higher quality sketch paper here, and then I work at a library, so I have a stamp pad. There have been very few seasons of my life when I have just had a stamp pad lying around at home, and I would venture to guess that none of those times were when I was between the ages of 11 and 17. So in the likely event that you don't have a stamp pad, probably the thing that you're most likely to have at home is I just grabbed some acrylic paint and a paper plate. So when you're ready to use your stamp, you can just put your paint down on your plate and we can use our stamp that way. And because I'm working with paint, I also have a paper towel in the likelihood that I get somewhere I shouldn't. So, as I was saying before we got started, if you wanted to think about what kind of design you wanted to do, I pre-sketched some designs that I thought that I might like to do for my stamps tonight. And keeping with what I was saying, we're gonna want to do a design that's a little more simple, so we are not fighting horribly with our stamp carving tools. So for my circle design, I have kind of this strange abstract moon with plant growing out of it, question mark. And so the places that I left white are the ones that we're gonna leave more upward in the design, and then the places that I've shaded in darker are going to be the parts that we carve out of our eraser to make our stamp. For my square design, I did kind of this shooting star with little triangles coming off of it. So again, kind of keeping bigger elements, more large shapes to make it a little bit easier on myself while carving. But again, however ambitious you'd like to get with it, absolutely go for it. So our first step is basically going to be transferring whatever design that we'd like onto our stamps. So I'll go ahead and draw my designs on my stamps concurrently now, at the same time right now. And so I'm using a pencil. You can use a pen and you should be able to rub it off. It just might be a little less forgiving when you are sketching your design onto your stamp. It is also super helpful to, in whatever way makes the most sense for you, mark out what you'd like to carve away of your design and what you'd like to keep of your design. So generally, any part, so let's say on our stamp we're going to be using our green paint, anything that you want green, you're going to want to keep and not carve away. And anything you want white or a negative space, you're going to want to carve out. So in the case of, for example, this moon design, I want the moon and this little tree part to be green, and then I want all of this stuff to just be normal page color. So from here, we can go ahead and start sketching our design. So let me know if you can see okay. I'm going to keep my designs here for reference. If you have any questions while we go, feel free to leave them in the chat. All right. So I have finished sketching out my designs on our stamp pads. And so for those of you just joining us, the areas that I've shaded are the ones that I'm going to carve away to be white when we use our stamp. And then the places I've left unfilled in my design, I'm going to, oh, thank you. I'm going to leave the areas I want to be colored in when we use a stamp, I'm going to leave a blank. Now we can take our carving tool, and so the process for this, you're really just going to want to kind of chip away at the rubber in the stamp to get rid of the parts you don't want to keep in your design. As said previously, this is not the sharpest implement. It is not the most enjoyable stamp carving tool to use, but it is safe, which is the important part, right? So it'll take a little while to wear things away. I like to work with the big side first to get kind of most of the area taken back, and then go in with the smaller side to clean it up. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be smooth. The areas that you carve away just need to be kind of far enough down from the sections that you're keeping that they won't catch the stamp when you're pressing it down on the paper. And so because this is a longer process, I'm going to get started carving. I find that taking kind of a more extreme angle and kind of wiggling helps, since the tool itself isn't super sharp. So in a way, you're almost using it more like a shovel to just get the excess rubber out of there. Of course, if stamp carving is something that you're more interested in, I definitely recommend getting some real tools for it. I certainly think that it makes it a little bit easier. And so, to show you again, oh, I probably should have said this before I started, but it is a little messy. So if I would do this on a surface that's kind of easy to clean off or easy to brush into a garbage can, because you will get lots of eraser shavings around as you're doing it. And since you've seen me carve the first half of this, I figure probably be a little less boring to at least chat a little bit as we carve our stamp. And so really, it doesn't have to be too far down. There just needs to be a clear delineation between where your stamp is hitting and the areas that aren't filled in. It can take some trial and error. Those of you who grabbed a stamp from the teen area and saw my initial cat stamp when I was ambitiously trying to do a stamp with maybe a little more detail. You know, he's not the most handsome lad, but it's the kind of thing that you learn as you go. I think that's a benefit of having the two stamp pads, so you can do a couple attempts and see what technique works the best for you, what kind of design you want to make, all that fun stuff. For those of you who went back to school today, I hope it was an easy day back, not too stressful. This might be a sacrilegious sentiment. I always found school breaks kind of hard because you're in a routine and you're seeing your friends all the time, and then suddenly you aren't. So I would say got pretty much the first half of this stamp done, and then I'm just gonna clean up a few areas that I think might cause some trouble when I stamp it. And you can always test and kind of feel on your hand which parts are touching and which parts aren't, to see if you've got a big enough difference between where your stamp is hitting once you kind of softened it by getting that first kind of harder layer off. It does make it a little bit easier to get more of the rubber out. Or even like right now, I'm taking the thinner side to just kind of score deeper marks in to the stamp, and then using that to take away a bunch of height all at once. And as you're doing this, you may be thinking, this looks really ugly. And I thought the same thing. But really, again, the important part is what is actually going to be touching the paper. So even though it might not be the most visually beautiful situation happening on your actual stamp, it's just what's touching that counts. So this is kind of a really good study in like 3D shapes. Planes, not airplanes, but like three-dimensional planes. Unless you're doing an airplane for your stamp, in which case it could be a study of both. Here is the first half of my design carved. As you can see, not very visually appealing, but all of the parts that I had kind of colored in, shaded in to indicate I'd be getting rid of them, I can go ahead and do that on the other side. If you are carving along with me, I'm sure you have realized what I realized, which is that it's hard to carve with the pencil. So again, if this is a hobby you think you might be interested in, I definitely think it's worth investing in some good stamp carving tools. I know Lunar New Year is coming up. It's the year of the horse. I don't know what the most recent year of the horse was. I personally am year of the ox, a fellow barnyard animal. Thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. It's always more fun crafting with a friend. If you'd like to show me your final stamps, I'd love to see them. Probably the easiest way to get those to us at the library is to email us, or you can tag us on social media. We're at Wauconda Library on Instagram and Facebook. We'd love to see take and make crafts, teen or otherwise, that you're making. My thought for doing the stamp carving in the winter be that if you're giving any gifts to your friends or family this holiday season, that what would be better than to put your own hand-designed stamp on an envelope or a package, or even thank you cards, or even as a gift to someone that you love. And if you're having any trouble thinking of ideas, there are a lot of stamp artists who do beautiful designs. You can find really cool inspiration images online. Well, this isn't necessarily block printing. That could be a great place to start, to looking up different design ideas that you could do. Can you tell I'm pushing very hard as I carve this stamp? Okay, so I think I got a good kind of initial amount off. I'm not 100% sure if it's not quite enough for my stamp, so I think this is a good time for me to test it and see how it's actually working as a stamp. So in the interest of using what you guys are more likely to have, I'm going to take my acrylic paint and take off the safety seal. No one's used this one yet. Update. Paint has gotten on hands. I'm going to pour out just a little bit of my paint onto a paper plate. I'm going to kind of flatten it out. Acrylic paint is going to be a little bit more likely to get into the parts of our stamp we don't want it to get into. So I'm just gonna take my stamp, saturate it with some paint, and then go ahead and press it on to my paper. So I am actually pretty happy with that transfer. I don't think I need to carve away anymore, which means our first stamp is complete. And if you don't want to stain your stamp, what you can do is go ahead and wash it off as soon as you use it. It won't affect the stamp at all as long as you dry it before you use it the next time. I think we're ready to start carving our second stamp, but I have carved multiple stamps with the strange pencil tool at this point, so if this is your first time using it, it might be taking you a little longer, and that's totally okay. We all craft at our own pace, so take your time and enjoy the process. I'm going to go ahead and start carving my second stamp. Hope you guys are enjoying the snow and the winter weather. I tend to really like the winter weather in December, but as soon as we get to January, I'm kind of like, we could be done with this now, right? And I might try and correct as I go. I think the star in my concept turned out a little bit better than the one I drew here. So I might just try and kind of fudge some of the details of it so it looks a little bit nicer. Thank you in the chat for saying my stamp looked nice. I've seen some really fun stamps that play on different ways of, I guess, breaking the fourth wall of the page. I was looking for inspiration a little earlier. I saw some fun ones that make it look like the page corner is turned, and there's like little guys looking out, which I love. Love a little guy. Anyone who watched last month as I lost it over a felt goose will know that I love a little guy. I think in the case of this month, my fear of the pencil carving tool was greater than my love of little guys. I'm curious if you guys have any more ideas for, like, different uses for stamps. I've seen, like, artists stamp their work, especially if they do, more like 3D. That's the word I was looking for. 3D art. as opposed to kind of a 2D medium to like stamp the bottom of pottery or something like that. So if you do a lot of other crafts, you could always use your stamp as a way to like, as kind of an artist's signature. Yeah, I'm finding a lot more success kind of taking the thin side and roughing up the areas that I want to carve away, like kind of doing more of a hashtag, and then using the bigger side to kind of get those looser areas off. And if you need to, I know when I've done this, gripping my hand really hard gets kind of tiring, so if you need to take a break, you aren't doing this for a live stream as part of your job. So you get to walk away, do some hand stretches, rest and relax. I know there's lots of artists who do kind of like warm-up drills for their wrists and hands and stuff. I haven't heard if there's anything similar that like 3D artists do or stamp carvers do. I always think those kinds of things are so cool because obviously we think about athletes, you know, always stretching, making sure their body is in good condition. But artists or even musicians like pianists and things like that have to be mindful about how it's affecting their bodies too. And the way this questionable pencil tool is affecting your body is maybe making your hand a little sore. I hope you guys feel like the end result is worth it. I suppose, as a librarian, I should be talking about what I've been reading recently that I've enjoyed. I read a very good middle grade book called The Wrong Way Home. It's about, well, I as an adult and you as a teenager would probably know that the main character was in a cult. That her mom has kind of like broken her out from, but she does not know because she was a child in a cult. And so it's kind of like her adjusting to life outside of it. I really recommend it if you enjoy kind of like like middle grade nonfiction or teen fiction. That's kind of more grounded in like a real experience or things like that. I also read, in terms of teen books, I read a very good book called What Comes After, that we do have physically in our teen collection. It's about a girl who dies, and doesn't quite know how she died, but in order for her soul to pass on, she needs to like fix her relationship with her mom, which is very fractured. I thought it was very funny. It's kind of like a dark comedy. If you guys are familiar with the show The Good Place, it kind of has that afterlife tone. Also, if you enjoy mystery, there's the element of her trying to figure out how she died. And there's kind of like weird afterlife faction shenanigans and inequalities that the characters are dealing with. I found it really interesting. It definitely didn't go where I thought it was going to go with the afterlife like concept. So I kind of thought it was interesting and unexpected in that sense. I also read, if any of you guys like fantasy, I think it's technically an adult fantasy novel, but I don't recall there being any content in there that would be like needlessly adult. I definitely think teens could read it, especially if you're already like well into the teen or YA collection. But it's called Keeper of Small Fortunes. It's about this kind of fortune teller from fantasy China, essentially, who kind of says she only tells small fortunes because that's what people are able to hear. And she kind of meets up with this group of reformed thieves on her adventuring. It's very like kind of cozy fantasy, D&D coded, found family type story. That does have some really nice elements. I thought it was really nice because I haven't seen a lot of cozy fantasy books that aren't romance based. Whereas this was very much more about kind of, you know, the main character's relationship with her family, who she ran away from, and other characters' relationships with their, you know, children and families. I thought that was an interesting, kind of a refreshing take on the cozy fantasy lore. If you guys are interested or able to tell me what you guys are reading in the chat, I'd love to hear it. Or next time you see me in person. I am, of course, no pun intended, whittling away at my second design. If you need to replay any steps of the process, just let me know. If you want more of a close-up of what's going on. And you can always, if you're tuning in live, but you got here later, you can always scroll back in the stream to see any parts you missed or watch the recording for any parts that you missed. If you don't quite have enough time right now. we've got some fun teen programs coming up. Here I am in promotion mode. I am very excited. I believe it's January 30th. I don't have it in front of me. End of January. It's a Thursday night from 6 to 8. We are doing a Howl's Moving Castle Make and Watch, which is a new teen program we're trying where we show a movie and just give you time to kind of do some related crafts or color or just hang out and watch the movie. We'll have snacks. I'm hoping very much to have some good soot sprite crafts, maybe a calcifer. I love a calcifer. If any of you guys are into anime or Studio Ghibli movies or Spirited Away, or if you've never seen Howl's Moving Castle, it is definitely a beloved animated classic. We'd love to have you join us for that one. It's also not too late to register for Book Fix, which is a program where you register and you fill out a short survey of what you like in books, what you don't like in books, things you've read recently that you've enjoyed, other media that you enjoy, and we go ahead and recommend you 3 books or graphic novels or audiobooks based on what you like, and we check them out to your account, and then we give you some free goodies and all your books. This month we have a coaster and some delicious allergy-friendly hot chocolate. It's the Death by Chocolate brand, and it looks so good, and I'm very jealous of all of you that get to have it. And if you enjoy crafting and want to try crafting in the library, we have great adult craft classes every month, and we call them adult craft classes, but teens can come to them. So if you ever see one that you're interested in, make sure to register. I think it was last month that we had paper quilling, and it looked very fun. Or that's this month. I'm realizing I should have researched our calendar better before coming on the live stream tonight. And always feel free to let us know if there's a type of program that you'd like to see for teens that you feel like you're not seeing. This is your library. We want you to have a space where you feel like you can come in and hang out with friends or find a way to, pursue your hobbies in a way you can enjoy. So if you have any ideas, feel free to shoot them my way. Hopefully I'll be able to finish up this last design in the next 10 minutes or so. I think I'll be okay. But again, you guys are not fixed to the to the laws of the live stream, so feel free to give this as much time as you'd like. So I've got just this bottom section here left to carve. And so if you look, you actually don't need to carve too much away. Less than I feel like you think you do. It's really about what's gonna connect with the paper. I think, you know, with a true carving tool, it might be a little bit easier. I feel like you probably get less of the like shavings that we're getting with the pencil. So it might be a little bit easier to tell. But unfortunately, not having, you know, a super sharp edge, again, safety is important. We get more of those, you know, shaved off bits, and it's less of kind of a clean cut. So I kind of just got one last section, and then that's it for our second stamp. Curious to know what you guys are thinking for your designs. I'm sure also if there's, say, like a specific character you wanted to do a design of, that there's ways to kind of trace it. I think probably my instinct is that the easiest way that would be most accessible to everyone, because like obviously something like carbon paper is great for transferring designs. But I think like an easy, dependable way would be to just print out whatever art you want to transfer and then kind of trace it maybe with a pen while it's on the rubber. And then hopefully if you press hard enough, it would indent it into the stamp, so you kind of use that as the basis for design, because I'm sure lots of you would love to do maybe a favorite character or an emblem. I don't know how many of you guys watch Naruto these days, but like the first thought I had for like an emblem was like all of the village emblems from Naruto. Do the kids still like Naruto? We might be just about ready to try and see if we can get a transfer. I think there's a couple areas that might be a little dicey, but let's go ahead and try. If any of my managers are watching this, I promise there will be no paint on this table in this room by the time that I leave. So I'm just, same thing as I did for the other stamp, pop in some acrylic paint on a plate. I'm using a paper plate, but if you have a general flat crafting material, you can save something disposable. I would always go with that option. And again, I'm just taking, if I was not in a very white room at work, I would probably just use my finger, but taking a paper towel to kind of make a like flat, thin layer of paint on my plate. And then I'm going to take my stamp, press it in. kind of rub it around, make sure it's on all parts of the stamp. And then it looks like it may have caught in some areas that I don't want it to transfer. So let's see how we're doing. A nightmare. So as you can see, the transfer was slightly worse on this one. I'm trying to decide if it's because there was too much paint on it or if it was my own bad carving. So I'm going to maybe try again with just a little bit less paint. And then second transfer. I think it is the stamp itself. So because I do not have the ability to not get a bunch of paint on this table, how I would fix the issue that I'm having where it's not as defined as the other stamp, I would go back in and kind of deepen the carve so that the places that are carved off are further in height from the design itself, is how I would troubleshoot that if you're having that issue with your stamp. I definitely think it's easier on a simpler design. On a simpler design to get it a little cleaner than kind of this more complicated design. But that puts us basically at the end of our live stream. I am so grateful that so many of you were able to join me this month. This is one of my favorite things to do. It's so fun to craft with you guys live like this. Before I go, because this is the Teen Take My Craft program, I do want to talk a little bit about Wauconda. What is Wauconda, you may ask? So this is a program for teens to reward you guys for doing quests around the library. So you can grab one of these brochures from the teen area upstairs, so the table right by the teen collection, and if you need help, a librarian would be happy to help you. But inside are 4 quests, so anytime you finish one of these quests, you can enter your name into a drawing to win one of 2 very cute plushy dragons. This is Gerald. Harold is on display if you would like to say hello to him, and they could be yours to win if you participate in Wauconda. If you finish a full page of quests, a quest chain, you are able to grab a prize from a prize bin. There's some fun bookmarks and stickers and all sorts of great stuff in there. So we'd love it if you could participate in the program. All you need to do is grab one of these brochures from the teen area, and then anytime you finish a quest, so it's things like showing us or replacing your library card if you lost it, checking out literally anything. That's right, literally anything. Participating in a program, so this would count if you grabbed a craft kit, if you watched the live stream. You can go to the greeter desk as soon as you like and check off your quest and put your name in for a drawing. It's just a way to reward you for being involved and using your local library. We appreciate you guys so much, and we want to say thank you to you. So that is me and my one working stamp for our broadcast tonight. Again, I'm so grateful that you guys were able to join me tonight. Or if you're here watching the live stream after the fact, I hope you join us next season for our next Take and Make craft. I'm trying to decide if I should spoil it or not. I'll leave you in suspense. I will not spoil you as to what the teen takeaway craft is for spring, but there will be one, and we'll be so happy to have you participate again next season. So it's been me, Emmy, with the Wauconda Area Public Library, my friend Gerald, and we hope to see you in the library soon. Thank you.